Hello, and thank you for taking time from your busy schedule today to participate in this webinar. I'm Melinda Dyer, and I'm the Program Supervisor for the McKinney-Vento Education of Homeless Children and Youth Program at the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. Today's webinar is titled Preparing for a Successful CPR Monitoring Visit, and it's specifically focused on the McKinney-Vento elements of the OSPI CPR, or Consolidated Program Review, monitoring process. If you have any questions about the content of the webinar that I do not address today, please email me, and I'll be happy to answer questions. My contact information is found on the last slide of this presentation. The purpose of today's webinar is to assist districts in preparing for the homeless education components of the upcoming CPR review process to ensure a successful monitoring visit, but the webinar is certainly appropriate for all districts, even if you are not being monitored this year. Every item to be covered today is a requirement under the Federal McKinney-Vento Act, and districts should employ all of the strategies we will cover today. If your district is not using the forms I show today, or you're not covering the basic implementation steps to be highlighted in this webinar will help you understand what you should be doing to identify and serve your homeless students and give you some strategies to get those necessary requirements implemented in your district immediately. The U.S. Department of Education requires compliance monitoring of all school districts, including charter schools and other local education agencies, whether or not the LEA receives McKinney-Vento grant funding. And the Consolidated Program Review process helps fulfill that monitoring requirement. Also, this webinar will provide an opportunity for some basic technical assistance for liaisons and other school district staff. First of all, for those of you who are being monitored this year, you will need to be familiar with the CPR, or Consolidated Program Review, checklist. This checklist is your guide to let you know exactly what OSPI will be looking for as we monitor your district. There are several sections of the checklist. Each section covers a different program to be monitored. Some items on the CPR checklist include multiple sub-items. You can find a copy of the monitoring checklist at the link shown on this slide. If you are being monitored this year, and the ESD regions to be monitored each year are posted to the OSPI CPR website if you're curious about your own district, you will need to demonstrate compliance by providing the evidence and documentation requested on the checklist. When uploading the documentation to the electronic program monitor site, you'll be asked to provide the item or items requested on the checklist. A few good examples will typically suffice to show compliance. Don't feel obligated to provide documents that are not requested. And remember that you do not need to provide multiple copies of the same item. Typically for the McKinney-Vento program, a few good examples, 2, 3, or maybe 4, are enough to show compliance. If we still have questions, or if we need to see additional documentation, we will certainly let you know. Here is a copy of the McKinney-Vento portion of the CPR checklist. There are 11 separate items for the McKinney-Vento portion of the checklist this year, and as stated earlier, some items have multiple parts. Please be sure to address all components of each item when uploading your documentation. If any portion of the item is missing or incorrect, the entire item may be marked non-compliant, and you will be asked to correct the item to bring it into compliance, or you may be asked to provide additional documentation to complete the item. The process is a great way for you to show off the good work you are already doing in your district and take credit for your efforts. Item 10.1, District Policy. Every district is required to adopt a comprehensive homeless education policy. We recommend that districts adopt the most current WASDA, which is the Washington State School Directors Association, Policy 3115. If you choose to use a different policy, it must be equivalent to the WASDA policy to ensure that all of the proper elements required by federal law are included in the policy. The most current WASDA policy is dated July 2017. It was just updated over the summer to include changes in the state law as well as new ESSA requirements. Please be sure your district policy is the most current. If you submit an outdated version of the policy in evidence, you will be asked to resubmit your documentation to show the most current policy. And as a side note, the WASDA procedure document 3115P was also updated in the summer of 2017, and you'll probably want to review and adopt it as well if your district has not already done so. Item 10.2, dispute resolution. All districts are required to have a homeless dispute resolution process to resolve disputes between parents or unaccompanied homeless youth and the district. When disputes arise regarding the enrollment or the provision of services for homeless students, such as transportation or other services, districts must follow the homeless dispute resolution process. When your district is monitored, you will be asked to show evidence of any disputes your district has worked on, including low-level disputes. This might include something as simple as a log of phone calls kept in a spiral notebook, to a spreadsheet of contentious issues that have come up locally or between districts, all the way up to formal disputes that require resolution from OSPI. Documentation might, in some cases, include an email trail between the liaison and the parent or others pertaining to a dispute. On the checklist, you will also be asked to provide a copy of the homeless dispute resolution process to demonstrate that you know what the process is, when it is to be used, and the timelines to follow. There is one homeless dispute resolution process for the entire state, and that same process is to be used in every district when disputes arise. If you need a copy, which is posted to the OSPI Homeless Education website, you'll find the link on this slide. Many districts will not only provide paper copies of the dispute process to families or youth when the need arises, but they will also post the dispute process to their district's website to ensure parents and unaccompanied youth have easy and immediate access to the process. This is considered a best practice. Here is a copy of the Washington State dispute process for children and youth experiencing homelessness. When you upload the document for evidence, be sure it is the correct document with the full text of the dispute process. Dispute resolution continued. There are dispute initiation forms posted on the OSPI Homeless Education website, and it is recommended that the district use these forms when a dispute arises, and also show these forms in evidence along with the comprehensive dispute process described earlier. Forms should be customized with district letterhead, have all watermarks removed. The samples on the OSPI website are watermarked with the word sample written across the documents, so please be sure to remove the watermark before using it in your district, and also be sure to include the name and contact information for the district homeless liaison on any forms you use in the district. If your district has never had a dispute, please indicate that information in the notes section of the CPR checklist as you prepare your documentation. You will still need to provide a copy of the dispute process, however, to show that you are familiar with the process in case you ever need to use it. Here are images of some of the dispute initiation forms available on the OSPI Homeless Education website. Item 10.3, transportation. Districts are required to provide or arrange transportation to ensure that homeless students can get to and from their school of origin. Most districts do a great job of coordinating transportation services, but some do a better job than others in taking credit for the good work they're doing. Documentation is critical. It is important to have a formalized process in place for your district's homeless student transportation. Formal written agreements with neighboring districts are to be used when a student lives in one district but attends school in another district, and you should be able to access those agreements and show them in evidence during the monitoring process. A written agreement does not need to be a lengthy document, but it should clearly show that both districts worked together on the transportation plan and both districts should sign off. This helps alleviate situations where one district sends a surprising invoice to another district at the end of school year for services. And these agreements also help iron out in advance how the districts will address issues like altered schedules, snow days, early release days, bus driver strikes, and other unforeseen situations. If your district uses taxi service, explain how that looks in your district. If you provide in lieu mileage reimbursement, show evidence of the forms used for parents to access mileage reimbursement from the district. If you need a sample transportation request form, you can find one on the OSPI website, and it can be customized for district use. We would expect to see completed transportation forms for real students, not just sample documents in your evidence. In addition to written agreements, you might show evidence of email correspondence or other documentation that transportation is immediately and appropriately set up for homeless students. Even if your district currently has no students being transported under McKinney-Vento, and there are a few of our tiny rural districts where this may be the case, it is still the responsibility of the district to know and understand the transportation requirements for homeless students. We will expect to see evidence of transportation agreements, written policies, and/or sample forms or other documents to show that your district understands the transportation requirements for homeless students when or if the situation arises in your district. Here is an image of the sample transportation request form found on the OSPI website. Item 10.4, Homeless Liaison. Every district is required to have a homeless liaison, and that liaison needs the time and capacity to carry out all of the required duties outlined in the law. Please take a look at the documents on the OSPI website if you need information on the specific duties of the liaison and the process the district should go through when designated the liaison to ensure that person has the time, the knowledge, the capacity, etc. to fulfill all of the job duties. When reviewing evidence, we compare the information you upload to the checklist to our OSPI liaison distribution lists to make sure they match. We also look at your district's McKinney-Vento forms and documents, posters, brochures, and other resources to see that the liaison's name and contact information are included so that parents and youth can reach out to the liaison when needed. The liaison's name and contact information, along with general information about the district's McKinney-Vento program, should also be posted on the district's website, as well as any building-level links leading to your general district website. When your district liaison goes to the OSPI Homeless Liaison database, which is posted online, to ensure that the contact information is correct, make sure to also update the other fields regarding the dates that the liaison attended training and any other requested information. Item 10.5, Identification. Item 10.5 is frequently found to be non-compliant when we conduct our CPR monitoring. There are several components to this item, and you will need to make sure and address all parts of the item and include adequate documentation for each. First, you'll need to show evidence that the district is using an appropriate housing questionnaire and providing it to every family every year. Typically, these surveys go out at the beginning of every school year, perhaps in the start of the year packets that include standard forms like the free and reduced lunch forms or other information for families. The housing questionnaires must also be included in all new enrollment packets. Best practice would be to distribute these forms more than once per year, and to give you some existing best practices, some districts have provided the forms at open house, at parent nights, or include them with grade reports or other times. This is an easy way for families to update their address, and remember the form is to be labeled as a housing questionnaire and not a residency questionnaire. The term residency can create a barrier, as many families associate the term with legal or illegal immigration status, and they may be fearful of completing the form. You might also avoid terms such as homeless to avoid creating barriers. The most current OSPI housing questionnaire can be found on the OSPI Homeless Education website, and while it is a sample form and districts are not required to use the specific OSPI format, the form is a good one. and it's used by most districts. If you create your own form, it should be consistent with the OSPI Housing Questionnaire, which uses the actual language from the McKinney-Vento Act to provide the definitions of homeless, along with the legal citations. Additionally, the OSPI form uses the same housing categories used by U.S. Department of Education to show whether the student is sheltered, unsheltered, doubled up, or in a hotel-motel. These are the same categories used in the annual data collection, so it's a great way to ensure that your homeless families are identified and counted in a way that allows for ease in reporting through CEDARS. Additionally, a good housing questionnaire allows the district to focus on active outreach to families, which is important, as the district should not wait for families to self-disclose their housing status. To show documentation, we would expect to see copies of the district's housing questionnaire. Please show us forms that have been completed and not blank samples, and provide an explanation of how they are distributed and collected to identify students for McKinney-Vento eligibility in your district. Many districts also include the housing form on their district website, but remember that not all families have internet access. So, while posting McKinney-Vento forms, resources, and other information on your district's website is a great idea and a best practice, districts cannot rely solely on electronic communication for McKinney-Vento purposes, as an all-electronic format would constitute a barrier to our homeless families. Hard copy forms should always be used in addition to your electronic access. The other two components of item 10.5 involve the McKinney-Vento professional development requirements. Every school district liaison is required under the McKinney-Vento Act to participate in comprehensive liaison training. There are a few options for training, including attendance at our large OSPI statewide workshops offered every fall, smaller OSPI regional workshops, select breakout sessions at partner conferences, for example, a McKinney-Vento breakout session at the annual OSPI School Counselor Conference, or NCHE live webinars and Schoolhouse Connection webinars that provide requirements and implementation strategies for McKinney-Vento programs. You can check the NCHE, or National Center for Homeless Education, and Schoolhouse Connection websites for upcoming webinars to check out the webinar topics they are offering each month. For purposes of CPR monitoring, you can provide registration forms, clock hour forms, certificates of participation, workshop agendas, or other documentation to show compliance. The liaison is also required to track their training for the year on the OSPI Homeless Education website by clicking on the Liaison link. This is the same link used to update and maintain the school district liaison contact list. As part of the CPR monitoring process, OSPI staff will cross-check the information provided in your evidence regarding the liaison's name and training information with the information shown on the OSPI Liaison Contact Information page on our website to make sure the contact information provided to OSPI is accurate and up to date. Keep in mind that it is a strict requirement that the school district's designated liaison must attend an approved training. The person listed as the liaison must meet all of the liaison requirements found in the law, and if the designated liaison tends to delegate the liaison work to others in the district and does not fulfill the requirements of the district liaison as outlined in the law, the position should probably be reassigned to an employee who has the time and capacity to accomplish all of the many duties outlined in the law, including training. Not only participating in the required liaison training, but also providing the necessary district-level staff training. For compliance with district-level staff training, the district should be able to show documentation that staff training was offered to employees at the district and building level, including office staff, transportation providers, athletic directors, counselors, and other staff, the dates and locations of the training, sign-in sheets of the employees that attended, the materials used, etc., emails announcing the training, copies of sign-in sheets and other documents are critical evidence to show that training has been provided. Finally, district and building staff training should only be provided by the district homeless liaison or other qualified staff to ensure that the trainer has been appropriately trained and is knowledgeable in the requirements of McKinney-Vento. Here's an image of the current OSPI sample housing questionnaire. This is the form used in most districts, and it contains the necessary fields and the actual definition of homeless according to McKinney-Vento. It can be found on the OSPI Homeless Education website in multiple languages for use in your district. Just customize it by adding your district's letterhead and the name and contact information for your district's homeless liaison. This slide shows where to find information and forms as well as some of the approved training options. We send out monthly notices via GovDelivery to let you know which webinars are offered, but I encourage you to visit these websites. Keep in mind that if you attend a webinar offered through NCHE, only the live webinars offer a certificate of participation to show evidence of your attendance. Previously recorded webinars cannot offer evidence of participation. Item 10.6, Enrollment, Intake, and Access. In addition to a housing questionnaire, districts should be using a separate intake form that is a tool to be used to follow up with families after they've completed the housing questionnaire. The completion of the intake form serves as a step to inform the family of the services provided by the district, initiate referrals to community services, and prompt conversations with families or unaccompanied youth to ensure they are set up with all of the necessary supports. A typical scenario might be that a student returns a completed housing questionnaire which contains responses indicating that the family qualifies as homeless under McKinney-Vento. The liaison would then follow up with the family to get more information about their housing situation and immediately start transportation and free meals and set up all other supports for the child. The sample intake form can be found on the OSPI Homeless Education website. The OSPI form includes many prompts for the liaison to use when working with the family and has several checkboxes to facilitate the intake process. Often families in crisis do not remember everything they need to tell the new school about their child, and this form is useful in guiding the conversation. For purposes of CPR monitoring, we expect to see completed forms for evidence and not blank samples. This is an image of the OSPI sample intake form. Most districts use this form and add their own district logo along with the liaison contact information. If you choose to create your own intake form or process, it should be comparable to the sample form, and you will need to show evidence of your intake process for CPR documentation. Item 10.7, Unaccompanied Homeless Youth, Higher Education, and the FAFSA. Item 10.7 is a new item on the checklist this year, and it is in response to the new requirement that school districts must provide partial credit for work done in a prior school. Additionally, school counselors must provide support in assisting homeless students with accessing higher education and FAFSA completion. While OSPI is still working on guidance related to these new requirements, there are a few items you can show for CPR evidence. Examples include email communication to show coordination between sending and receiving districts to demonstrate the process of granting partial credit. Redacted transcripts showing partial credit that has been granted to students who've transferred to a new district. Agendas to show that counseling staff and liaisons are meeting to discuss how to best facilitate the granting of partial credit. Evidence of FAFSA workshops offered by the district to assist students in completing the FAFSA. Completed FAFSA verification letters. These letters should go out to every homeless graduating senior each year to verify that the students have independent student status for purposes of FAFSA completion. To find the most current template for verification letters, contact Melinda Dyer at OSPI. Best practice would be for the liaison to provide letters to all McKinney-Vento seniors, even if you're not sure if they plan to move on to higher education. This way the students have them if they need them. You will also maintain a copy in the district, as the students may lose their copy, and they might need documentation later on. Item 10.8, Early Childhood. Early learners are covered by the McKinney-Vento Act, and it is important that districts include preschool teachers in McKinney-Vento training and provide McKinney-Vento information to parents of preschool students. Homeless preschool students must be prioritized for enrollment, and just like their older counterparts, they are to be identified and served immediately. The district should be able to show evidence of coordination between the McKinney-Vento program and the district's preschool programs, including district-operated Head Start, ECAP, and other early childhood programs. Preschool students are now included in the definition of school of origin, and districts will need to provide evidence of transportation and other coordinated services for early learners. Evidence might include documentation such as sign-in sheets to show that preschool teachers have attended McKinney-Vento training, evidence of coordinated transportation for preschoolers, housing surveys and homeless student intake forms that include spaces to add younger siblings who need preschool enrollment, information for preschool parents explaining how preschoolers experiencing homelessness are prioritized for enrollment, or copies of communication to explain how programs may save slots specifically for children experiencing homelessness. Here is an image of the Child Find Notice on the OSPI website. All districts are required to post Child Find notices to inform families of the availability of developmental screening offered by the district for young children. You may use the OSPI sample, which is available in multiple languages and found on the OSPI Homeless Education website. You may use your own Child Find Notice as long as the additional information regarding access for children experiencing homelessness is included. The notice must include this information to let parents know that they can access screening even if they are not residents of a particular district. Here's the language that must be included in your district's Child Find Notice. If your family is living in a temporary situation, you may contact the district where you are staying to attend a screening. If your CPR evidence does not include this language, you will be asked to revise your Child Find Notice to meet the requirement. Item 10.9, Community Collaboration. Districts are required to coordinate and collaborate with outside community agencies and entities. The district will need to show evidence that it's reaching out and partnering with community organizations to provide services for homeless children, youth, and families, to set up referrals, and to show that the school district is an active participant in community efforts to support children, youth, and families experiencing homelessness. This can be a challenge in small, rural communities where opportunities are limited. In those cases, you may choose to show evidence that information is shared at local churches, or that McKinney-Vento posters were hung in the community, or evidence that the liaison has provided McKinney-Vento presentations for local service clubs or regional entities like county health departments or housing agencies. Documentation of collaboration might include meeting minutes showing that the liaison is a standing member of a community organization that supports homeless individuals, or agendas showing that the liaison has done a McKinney-Vento presentation in the community, email correspondence to show coordination of events, such as fall school supply drives, participation on boards and work groups, etc. The coordination should be meaningful, ongoing, and reciprocal, with both the school and the community reaching out to each other on a regular basis. Item 10.10, Posting of Rights. The posting of the educational rights of homeless children and youth is required. The posters must be hung in schools and throughout the community where people experiencing homelessness are likely to see them. Common locations for posters include laundromats, extended rate hotels, the post office, food pantries, churches, clothing banks, libraries, community bulletin boards, etc. In addition, parent information must be readily available in all school buildings, generally in the front office on the counter or in a rounder, and in all new enrollment packets. The parent brochure from the National Center for Homeless Education is the preferred parent brochure, and it can be ordered or downloaded at the NCHE website or the OSPI Homeless Education website. For CPR documentation, you may show evidence by uploading photos of the posters hung in the district or community and listing all of the locations where they have been posted. Similarly, you will need to upload a copy of the NCHE parent brochure with the district liaison's contact information and let us know how the information is made available to parents. Your district's website is also a great place to post the rights of homeless students. During the monitoring process, we will look in schools for evidence of brochures, posters, and any other parent information related to McKinney-Vento. And we will also review your district's website for evidence of information and services for homeless students. Posters are available on the OSPI Homeless Education website in multiple languages. Here's an image of posters in multiple languages. And here is an image of the NCHE parent brochure we would expect to see in your district. Item 10.11, Title I Set-Aside. Every district is required to set aside adequate funds to serve homeless children and youth. This includes districts that receive McKinney-Vento grant funds, as well as those districts that do not receive McKinney-Vento funds. It also includes charter schools and other local education agencies. The homeless set-aside is to be taken before any other optional set-asides and before any building allocations are made. In order for districts to determine an appropriate amount for the homeless set-aside, districts must complete and submit a homeless Title I needs assessment. This needs assessment is included in the iGrants Form Package 201 and is required as part of the Title I application process. The needs assessment is to be completed collaboratively with the liaison, the Title I director, building principals, and other key district staff. The needs assessment is an important tool by which the district can identify actual student needs, consider the costs of meeting those needs, and determine how the district will cover the costs identified. The district will determine whether the costs will be covered through grant funds, basic education dollars, Title I funds, community resources, or other options. There is not a specific minimum set-aside amount to meet compliance, as it is the district's duty to identify the actual needs of the students and determine the appropriate set-aside. This could include staffing, excess transportation costs, graduation support, school supplies, tutoring, etc. The homeless set-aside must be at a level to meet the identified needs. Every district must show a homeless set-aside amount. Applications with a $0 amount will not be approved. If your district currently has no homeless students enrolled, you still need to have a Title I homeless set-aside in place to support students who may enter the district mid-year. During the CPR process, we will review the Title I needs assessment that was included in your district's 2017-18 Title I application. Even if the OSPI Title I staff has approved your application, there may be times when the McKinney-Vento staff has additional questions about your Title I homeless set-aside. For example, we will ask questions if the amount is very low. We may seek clarification if the set-aside amount is out of line with the number of identified homeless students, or if there are a lot of blanks left on the form. Title I continued. We'll be looking for evidence that the dollar amount is clearly stated, that the amount is adequate to meet the unique needs of homeless students in the district, a description of how the funds will be spent to support homeless students, and whether there are any other funds available to help support student needs. Reauthorization. All districts should have fully implemented the provisions of the reauthorized McKinney-Vento Act as of October 1st, 2016. At this point in the monitoring process, we would expect to see your McKinney-Vento program operating fully under the new law. We're happy to provide technical assistance if you are unsure about any of the requirements or if you have any questions. Resources. You can see our contact information on this slide, as well as the websites for our national partners, the National Center for Homeless Education, which is the official technical assistance contractor for the U.S. Department of Education, as well as Schoolhouse Connection. There is a new OSPI email address, and technical assistance now goes to homelessed@k12.wa.us. Thank you for your time today. Please do not hesitate to contact our office if you have questions or if you need further support in preparing for your consolidated program review monitoring visit. Have a great day.